Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tiffany, and here we talk about travel, money, and motherhood. So, if all of that sounds good to you, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Today, we're talking about the book I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. It is an amazing book, and I'm so excited to discuss it here. So, let's jump right into it. So Ramit's book is amazing. And if you haven't read it, definitely be sure to take some time to read it. You can get it on Audible. You can listen to it in the car. I guarantee you will learn something. So it's an amazing book. He starts off with talking about how finance is like fitness and it requires small steps over time. So if you think about a weight loss goal, if you think about wanting to lose 15, 20 pounds, it's not it's the best way to do it is to create a plan to do it over time, to lose like 2 to 4 pounds a month. And finances is the same. So the best way to grow your wealth is to do it over time, is to plan for a long-term strategy. And I think that is great analogy and it really makes a lot of sense. Instead of trying to get rich quick, develop a plan and a system that allows you to build wealth over time. And you don't need to be a financial expert to get rich. And so he talks about that in the beginning and in the introduction of the book, and just basically saying that it's more important to get started than to be perfect and to think about your rich life. So to think about, what do you want to do? For me, I want to reduce work, travel more, and spend more time with people that I love, my friends and family. And that is different for everyone. And it's important to know what you're working towards. Then he goes into chapter 1, which is optimizing your credit cards and optimizing any kind of debt. So his advice, and it's excellent advice, is to, if you have a credit card, is to pay them in full at the end of each month. Now, some people might say, I can't do that. So then the strategy would be to spend less on your credit card in order to be able to pay them in full at the end of each month. And then he talks about travel cards versus cash back. So travel cards, you get points at the particular, for example, American Express. You can get American Express points, and then you can transfer those points to Amex partners. So you can transfer them to JetBlue, you can transfer them to Marriott, you can transfer them to different hotel companies, different airline companies. And in that way, when you're spending on your credit card, you're gaining points and then you can travel for free. But the idea is not to spend more than you normally would in order to get points. The idea is to spend what you normally would spend, for example, groceries or any kind of daily expenses, to spend it on a credit card, and either a travel card or a cashback card. A cashback card, you get a certain percent of your total spending back. And he talks about automating your monthly payments in order to avoid late fees. So you can automate, and you might say, I don't know how much I'm going to have each month. And so I'm hesitant to automate the payments. You can automate the minimum. You know, you're going to pay at least the minimum. So you can automate that so that you never have a late fee. And then you can always pay more, and you should pay more. But if you have enough that if your spending is such that you're not spending more than you can pay, then you can automate the full payment of the card every month. And a good way to avoid overdraft fees is to use the credit card for your spending, and then use the money in your checking account to pay your credit card. Another bonus of using credit cards is that they're easy to track your spending. So if you spend everything on one or two or even three cards, the credit card company like Chase or like American Express will categorize your spending. So it will say you spent this much on food, you spent this much on travel, you spent this much on medical expenses. It will track everything, track all your expenses and categorize them. And you can do it for a year at a time. So if you want to say, what did I spend in 2023? It'll have all of that information already sorted for you. So it makes it easier to manage your expenses. He goes into you can ask for a lower fee. Some of the credit cards have fees. You can ask for a lower fee or you can ask them to waive the fee. He goes into different strategies to get the money back from credit card companies, so late fees or annual fees. He goes into scripts about how you can get that waived or get it credited or some other thing. Using points for travel, he definitely recommends that, which I also think is amazing. He talks about shopping around to get the best interest rates on credit cards and also on loans. So, for example, an auto loan or a home loan, and calling credit card companies and asking them if they can reduce the interest rate or if they can reduce the fee or if they can raise your credit limit to increase your overall credit limit. He talks about paying down your debt with high interest first, and also that, of course, credit cards is not free money. So this is money that you have to pay back. It sounds very obvious and simple, but apparently this is something that people struggle with, that this isn't money that is just free and you don't have to pay it back. And no, this is a loan essentially at a very high rate because credit card interest can be anywhere from 14 to 22%. So it's a high interest loan. And so you want to make sure that you're able to pay that card off every month. So that was chapter 1, when he talks about credit card utilization, lowering your debt, and maximizing different credit cards. Then he goes into beating the banks. So you have your checking accounts for everyday spending. And then you have, so your everyday spending means like you pay your credit card or you pay your mortgage or you pay your loan, things that happen on a regular occurrence, a monthly occurrence, you use your checking account. Then you have your high yield savings account from an online bank such as American Express or Vanguard or another bank that will give you a high interest on your savings account. So that could be 4% on your savings. And these accounts, you use it for purchases that you plan to make within the next couple of years. So you wouldn't want to invest that money because whenever you put money into the market, there's always the risk that it could go down in the short term. In the long term, the market generally returns. But in the short term, there could be something that happens. So if you're planning for a vacation or if you're planning for a down payment on a house or a car, you wouldn't want to put that money into your investment account. You would want to put it into a high yield savings account so that you can have that money grow until you're ready to spend it. And then he talks about having investment accounts for retirement. And he goes into various types of retirement accounts, your 401k, your IRA, your traditional, your Roth IRA. He talks about all of these investment accounts, particularly retirement investment accounts. And if you aren't utilizing these things through your job, then definitely read the book and take advantage of some of the strategies that he's talking about. For example, your 401k with company matching. So if your company offers matching, then it's like free money because you, for example, put, let's say, 3,000 into your 401k and your company matches that. So now your 3 is actually 6. And then that money will grow with the market. So it's a great opportunity to be able to build wealth. So after the banks, he talks about investing. So you can't build wealth without investing. And this is just a fact. It's you cannot get rich without some level of investing. And so what changes is what you invest in. Some people invest in real estate, some people invest in a business, some people invest in the stock market. So the bottom line is you need to learn how to grow your money, because savings accounts, even high yield savings accounts, isn't going to grow it to the point where you can retire. So savings alone won't build your wealth. You need to start the 401k with matching if it's available, pay off any debt, and then contribute to your Roth IRA and your taxable investment accounts. So your taxable investment accounts would be another investment account that you open after you max out your retirement accounts. And those you would pay taxes on if and when you sell any shares that you purchase. So he goes into that. Chapter 3 is investing and why you need to invest. Chapter 4 goes into the conscious spending plan. And so this is basically an outline for how you should spend or allocate your funds once you get paid. So his suggestion is to do 10% into investing, 5 to 10% savings, 20 to 35% guilt-free spending, and 50 to 60% expenses. And this is customizable depending on your situation. So if you have less expenses, then you can put more into investment or more into savings or more into your guilt-free spending. And the investment bucket, that's going to be your retirement accounts, your taxable investment accounts. Savings, those are going to be for future purchases. So you could be saving for a wedding, you could be saving for a car, you could be saving for a house. Those are things that you're going to eventually need that money. So not the same thing as your investment. Your investment is for long-term retirement. Your savings is for short-term vacations. Even you could save for a vacation. So it's short-term. Within the next couple of years, you need this money. So where you would invest for the long term for retirement is different than where you would put your money for a vacation. And you want to have that separate so that you contribute to both and so that you can see how much you have for both. Guilt-free spending, that's another account that you would have for your everyday spending. So this would be for going out, and it's different for every person. It's going to be what that person wants to spend their money on. For some people, it could be shopping, it could be clothes, it could be food, it could be decorating, it could be vacation. Vacations could be in the savings or it could be in the guilt-free spending. It depends. If it's like a weekend trip, then maybe you take it from your guilt-free spending. If it's a long planned out 2-week thing, then maybe you take it from your savings. And then your expenses is your rent, your car payments, if you have any, or your mortgage, your utilities, your student loans, your debt pay down. All of that would come into your expenses. And you also want to have this money separate from all of the other things so that you can see that you have money for your investments, you have money for your savings, you have money for your guilt-free spending, and you have money for your expenses. When you have them all in one account, it's kind of difficult to see if you have enough for this trip or do you have enough to invest. When they're all separate and in separate accounts, then you can see exactly, I have this much for bills, I have this much for spending, I have this much in my savings. It's much easier to manage when these are separate accounts. So that's chapter 4, where he talks about the conscious spending plan. Then he talks about saving while you sleep. And this chapter was talking about automating everything. So automate that 10% that goes into your investment. You can set it up so that the money is direct deposited into your brokerage account. So if that's Fidelity or Vanguard or Schwab, You can have that automatically transferred whenever you get paid. You can have the savings automatically transferred into your high yield savings account whenever. You can have the guilt-free spending stays in your one account, and then you can have the expenses transferred automatically. Everything's happening so that you don't have to manually do it. When you limit manual intervention, then the system just runs on itself. And so he talks about changing the due dates for your bills. So for example, if you get paid on the 1st, you can change your due dates that they're all of your credit cards and your utilities or anything, they're due on the 5th, so that you get paid and then you pay all of your bills, and then you can have your guilt-free spending left over, or your auto transfers to your investment accounts. You want to have that shortly after you get paid. So if you get paid on the 1st, maybe on the 5th, you have auto transfer into your brokerage account. He talks a lot about financial advisors and what they do, and how you shouldn't, or you don't need one. He talks about you don't need a financial advisor, that you can manage your system, your financial system yourself, that you can set up the automatic transfers, that you can pick an index fund, that financial advisors don't have your best interest at heart, and that they are overcharging people, and people don't realize it. So he was saying most financial advisors charge anywhere from 1 to 2%, and over time that can be tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the size of your portfolio and depending on the time that you're with this financial advisor. And so that's something that he talks about there. And he says, if you do use a financial advisor, then to use one that is not commission based. So you don't want to pay a financial advisor 1 to 2%. You would want to pay them a flat fee. So like 3%, or sorry, not 3%, like $300, or some flat fee that isn't a percent of your entire portfolio. So you want to have the flat fee to the financial advisor. So, and he says, stay away from financial commission-based advisors, stay away from whole life insurance, and stay away from annuities. That these are not in the best interest of the investor, and there are more money-making strategies for the person selling the whole life, or the person selling the annuities, or the person selling the advice. So then he goes into investing. So the goal is to get to a place where your interest, the money that grows from your portfolio, the interest pays for your lifestyle, and work is optional. And then he talks about FIRE, which is financial independence, retirement early, and the different versions of FIRE, lean FIRE, fat FIRE, basically getting to a point where work is optional. And that is an amazing place to be. And you want to get there by creating a system, creating a plan for long-term investments. He talks about index funds versus individual stocks. Basically, individual stocks is investing in one company. So Google, if you had shares of Google, that's an individual stock. If you had shares of Apple, or shares of Walmart, those are companies. And so if you have shares of those companies, those are individual stocks, versus having an index fund. So an index fund is made up of a collection of stocks. So for example, you can have the S&P 500. Those are going to be your top 500 in the overall market. And that is less risky than picking one stock. Because if something happens with the one company that you picked, then you're exposed to a lot of risk. Versus if you have an index fund with a bunch of companies in there, then if something happens to that one company, you have the other companies to balance out the risk. So he talks about that. index funds versus um, individual stocks. And then he talks about asset allocation. So basically, when you're younger, you can invest more in stocks in the market. And when you're older, closer to retirement, or when you've gotten to a place where you're less willing to be aggressive, you're less willing to take the risk of investing in the market, then you would change your portfolio to be more in the bonds or CDs or into safer investments in general. So you're younger, you can go more into the stock market. As you get older, you do safer investments. And that makes sense because you're getting to a point where you can't afford to take the risk of something happening in the market. He talks about target date funds, which is index funds, where the fund will do all of the work for you. So they'll do the asset allocation for you. And so if you invest in, say, a target date fund of 2050, which means you're going to retire at 2050. So as you get closer to 2050, that index fund, the target date fund, will have a more conservative balance. It'll have more stocks. It'll have more bonds than stocks in that fund as you get closer to that date. So he really suggests this type of investment because it's already allocated for you. So as you enter and you're further away from the target date, it's going to have more stocks. As you get closer to the target date, it's going to change and be more conservative. And that's something that he suggested because he was saying most people won't go back and reallocate as they get older. And so they should just do a target date fund. Chapter 8 talks about if you choose to do your own allocations. He was talking about rebalancing your portfolio. So, for example, if you're invested in domestic and you want a certain percent of that going to domestic stocks, and then you want like another maybe 20% in international funds, what could happen is if one area is outperforming another area, your percentages change. So let's say you started out with 30% domestic and you started out with 20% international. If domestic does really well and it's growing, it's going to become more than 30% of your portfolio. And so then he talks about rebalancing so that the domestic would remain at that 30%. And that's something you do every 12, 18 months or so. He suggests rebalancing. And then lastly, he talks about having a rich life and that your rich life is outside of the spreadsheets and outside of the stock market. And it's really what you would do with that financial freedom. So, what would you do with the money that you're investing and saving? What is it going to afford you? The lifestyle that it's going to afford you. And he talks about not being too restrictive with yourself. So, not living for tomorrow and sacrificing today. So still go out to eat or do whatever it is that you like to do. So if that's concerts, if that's movies, if that's fine dining, if that's travel, is that interior decorating, is that a hobby, an expensive hobby? He talks about being sure to do all of those things so that you are living the rich life. Like the whole point is to be able to save for those things that you want. And the whole point is to not spend mindlessly and to have structure to your spending so that you can afford to have what it is that you want to have and the lifestyle that you want to have. That's pretty much the point of the whole book. And the finances are just occurring in the background. So you have your scheduled transfers, your investments, you have it all in the background. And then your savings is building and you're living the life that you want to live. That was really pretty much the book. So I loved it. I enjoyed it. Let me know what you think, what you thought about it. What was your favorite part? What was the parts where really stood out to you? Was there anything that changed? Was there anything that you implemented in your life? Was there anything you were like, oh my God, I'm not doing that and I could? Let me know. I would love, love, love to have a conversation about this. I just think it's just such an amazing topic, and it's just there were so many little tips in the book, like you can just implement right now. Like there were actionable steps in the book. Like you can do this, put the book down, you can do this today, right now. And there were a lot of those things. So definitely, if you've read it, let me know. He talks about canceling banks if you've been there for a long time. He talks about Bank of America, Wells Fargo, horrible banks. So maybe people have accounts with them that are charging them excessive fees, all of these things that you can act on immediately. And if you have anything else to share, please leave me a comment. And until next time, I will see you.